Hey, it's me again. I'm Emily. I make games for a company called Weapons Grade Funk. I brought you something yesterday about a new game I'm working on called Function, and we went over the single player rules for it, and I figured I would take the opportunity to go over some of the multi-robot rules for it. Let's check it out. Okay, so as mentioned in the previous video, Function is a cute little card game for cute little robots, where you pilot a robot to different goals throughout the room. The robot is another player, typically a child, or if you want, the child can be the person who's doing the piloting, and you can be the robot. This is a game I developed during the pandemic for me and my kid to play because we were stuck indoors. It was sitting on the back burners for a while, and it's finally done and ready to get hitting Kickstarter pretty soon here. So I went over the single player rules yesterday. They're just a page long. Multiplayer rules are, I guess multiplayer is kind of the wrong word for it, right? It's already a multiplayer game, but this is a multi-robot version. Also comes with it. The single deck can support up to 4 players, and depending on which version of the multi-robot game you're playing, you can either get by with 3 individual robots and a single programmer, 2 to 3 individual robots and a single programmer, or 2 teams of 2, where you've got a 1 robot programmer team and another robot programmer team. So in the event of the cooperative play, which I think is the one at the top, yep, cooperative multi-robot play, the goal is pretty close to what it was in single player. You'll have a single goal, and you'll have multiple robots throughout the space that are all trying to pilot to the single goal around whatever obstacles are in there. They're all being handled by a single programmer over here who is drawing cards with functions on them to pilot those robots. Just like in single player, they're going to pull an initial 4. These probably aren't shuffled terribly well. Boop, boop. They're going to discard anything in the initial hand that is red. Those are forced functions. Those are important later on in the game, but during our starting hand, we don't want to start with forced functions. There we go. And they're going to begin piloting robots. For every robot you've got beyond the first, you're going to add an additional card to that hand so that you've got enough to work with everybody. I'm going to assume that I've got 1 extra robot. So we have 2 robots here and a goal, and that'll be the programmer on this side. And I can start by giving each of those individual robots their own command. So this robot I'm going to say is relatively aligned with the goal. I'm going to tell you to walk to. And this robot I feel like needs to turn. We're going to say that they're over this way. They need to turn this way, so I'm going to tell them to turn right. So this robot will pivot, and this robot will walk 2 steps that way. And the second part is I have to pick a second card because we have 2 card programs, right, for each one of these. So each of them have their individual card. The second card I pick, they both have to do, right? So in this case, I'm going to say walk random. Walk random distance. I don't have a dice on me, but I'd roll a dice. We'll say they get 6 steps. Both of them are now going to execute this command. And that all goes to discard, and we draw back up again. Now I have a compulsory function. We're past the first turn, so we're going to hold on to this thing. And I'm going to say, you up here, I want you to keep going, so we're going to give you the compelled one. You are facing the right direction now, so I also want you to get going. So both of you can go forward, and they'll both go walking. And then for the single card that they both have to execute, I'm actually going to use this fetch function right here to go re-grab that random walk that I had. Toss another dice, we'll say it gets a 3, and they'll both walk in that direction. And through that process, I'm trying to navigate at least one of those robots to the goal without the other ones getting stuck someplace and continuing to error. Just like in single robot play, 3 total errors means that the game is over. So multiple robot play is kind of like the challenge of the programmer to assemble functions that will allow at least one of their robots to reach the destination without causing the other ones to error out so many times that the whole game collapses. That's about it for cooperative. One of the things that you probably saw on the table there was a blast function. I actually needed to take those out before we started cooperative play because that's specifically for competitive play. Comes with the deck. I just didn't fish it out of there before we started the demo, but now we can go over those. Competitive play involves having multiple robot programmer teams. So you've got to have a robot and a programmer and a robot and a programmer, and that's all a single deck will support is 2 teams. But if you wanted to have multiple more robot and programmer teams, you just need more decks to do it. Those 2 teams will work off the same deck. They'll create single 2-hand cards out of a 4-hand beginning, just like they would in standard single robot play. And the goal is, again, to reach a single part of the room. If one's starting over here, another one's starting over here, we're all trying to get over here. Maybe there's some obstacles in the way. The major difference is that these robots now have the ability to kind of interact with each other in unique ways. We could pilot them into each other. I could say that I want to start off with a walk. We'll say that this is my robot over here, my opponent's robot's over here. And I'm going to turn, because we did want to go over here. So we're going to advance both of those in this direction. My robot will walk up 3 steps and turn this direction. My enemy, whose cards I don't know, we'll toss them over there. I'm not supposed to be able to see these. The other programmer sees them. Is probably going to assume, based on what they have a blast, an arm, a 4, which just says do the thing you just did again, and a fetch, which is useful, but not right now because we don't have anything to discard yet, is probably going to use an offensive attack, like this blast, to attack me since we started more or less adjacent to each other on the board. So they're going to say blast, and they'll use the 4 to blast again. Blasting is a specific function to competitive play in this game where the robots are given little blast objects, foam pieces. They could be a dart, they could be like a little rolled up ball of tinfoil, something fun for kids to hold on to that isn't heavy, that isn't dangerous, that they can toss at each other from across the space. Throw a blast object at a robot you can see without changing positions. This specific one is useful because if you do a blast too many times, you will actually error, but this one does not actually cause that to happen. So they were pretty fortuitous in this poll. As my character, my robot, advances forward, theirs is going to stay here because they don't have any motion and throw not just 1, but 2 blast objects because of this loop over here. Repeat the other command in this set 1 time. If they hit me, or they hit my robot rather, my robot errors, right? Could happen even twice in this case, which would be a little rough because we just started the game off, but that counts on 1, a child being able to toss a ball about 10 feet accurately. If it becomes a situation where the children are quite good at throwing, you pick a more obscure object for your blast. This is where things get creative. They could bring plushies, they can bring koosh balls, they can bring foam darts, whatever it is that's most fun to use as a blast. You can even use like little discs or frisbees or something so that they don't necessarily fly straight and keeps things kind of scattered and interesting. The human elements of this game are what make it entertaining. So pick blast objects that are fun to use. And in this situation, even though I've been hit, or if we assume we've been hit by one of these, we do take an error. They can be retrieved. There are certain functions in here called save functions that will actually restore your errors to you. We're not out of the game yet, and errors do allow us to reposition our orientation so that we can face the goal better, which this character is still sitting over here and hasn't moved yet. So we're down on errors, but we're up on position. And next turn, do I get a walk? Oh, there's a save. This is my save that I could use to recover 1 error, which would undo the previous damage. I also have a fetch that's available to me, and we had that walk 1 that we used earlier, so I could use that save and that fetch to grab that walk 1, which would get our robot moving in this direction and recovering from the error that just happened before. Makes for a lot of really fun competition, and a lot of situations where the robots who don't really have any autonomy in this game, but do get to be the ones acting out the commands, can look expectantly at their programmers and beg them to do a better job. Function will be hitting Kickstarter very soon, and I'm super excited to bring it to you, and I hope I see you there.